through my GIO Rebel T3 200cc quad. I've shaved off the ends here. Used to come out, cut them off, put a winch in, wired in a winch. There's a nail here. See the nail? That nail is actually through the shock itself. Drilled a hole right through where the nail is. The reason why is because the shocks would unscrew themselves because of the vibration, and you'd be driving along and your whole front end would just fall down. This guy, right up in here, that's your steering pivot. I don't know what the technical term is. Anyways, underneath it is kind of designed not very well underneath there. So I took it all apart, re-greased everything, and put a better design, some washers and stuff like that up in there. Fenders, added those on. I was getting sick of getting sprayed in the face by mud. Kind of gives it a funny look at the front there, a little too wide, but at least you don't get sprayed in the face. You got one on this side, the winch controller put right on the handlebars. These handlebars are actually made from scratch. Oh no, sorry. The bottom here is part of the original, and so is the handles, but I extended it. The original handles are pretty small, so I made it bigger, made it easier to turn. I had a problem with this boot. It got, not the boot, sorry, underneath of it got wore away when I was in the mountains, and so this seized up, and so turning was really hard to do, so I had to get in there and lube all that. I suggest lubing your joints frequently, especially if you drive through a river or something like that. Let's change the spark plug, change the oil right away too, which is a must. This is my power switch, believe it or not. I took it from up here. I gutted my whole handlebar. All of that is just a bunch of bogus. I pulled it all out, the electric stop and all that, I pulled it all out. So that's my switch. My solenoid died underneath, my starter solenoid died underneath my seat there. So I wired in a switch. You have to switch it on when the quad turns on. You got to switch it off. Not a big deal, but pretty reliable, unlike the solenoid. I welded my own chain guard because the plastic original snapped in 2 seconds. I had a tin one, but it kept rubbing against my chain. I had to weld this joint right there and the one on the other side a couple of times. I guess that seems to break. I was lifting the quad out of some mud using this rack, and it just snapped. New carb, just got it yesterday actually. It is the Mercuni carb 250cc. It came off of, I believe it's the X31 bike, so I got that at auction for like 30 bucks. Not bad. That is a lawnmower air filter. It's not the best setup, but it's way better than the air filter that came with the system. That's my fuel filter. It's set more of a vertical to help the fuel drain down. Found that helps out a lot actually. I rewired the quad a couple times, putting electrical tape everywhere. My battery looks terrible. This is all baking soda because I flipped my battery up at an acid leak. This right here, this is something interesting. If you're getting one of these, I'd suggest to your back shock mount, which is just a thin pipe, and replace it with a better setup. I mimicked down below. I mimicked the setup up top here. This little angle iron, welded all this myself after several times of the shock popping through and hitting the seat up after going off a 9-foot jump or something. So I bagged on this thing quite a lot, and it's been holding up pretty good. I put in, follow the exhaust, I put in a 250cc performance exhaust off of the X31, I believe it is. I had to weld my own mount right here, not a big deal. Oh, I had to play with the clutch. Out of the factory, the clutch was too far away. Or, sorry, how to explain it? It wasn't gripping enough there, so I made it grip a little bit more. You don't want to grip it too much, or else you'll be slipping all the time when it's not in gear. It's kind of a touchy subject, that clutch. Don't have the performance CID on it. CDI, I think it's what it's called. So I'm going to have to get that next. There's been some backfires, so I know that I'm not burning all the gas in the piston, so that's next. Oh, this also, lever, I pulled it out, put it a few notches down, and then put it back in. What was happening was taking it when it's level, and I was taking it over jumps. When you'd land, your foot would land down or gear up. So I had a piece of wood in here, and my feet were slipping off that as well. So now I made it so there's enough space here for a foot to go, and then you can gear off to the side. So there's a few changes that need to happen to this thing before it comes out of the factory, in my opinion. But they did a pretty good job for the amount of money you spend. This sprocket keeps coming loose, these 4 screws. So I didn't weld the screws to the sprocket, but I welded the ends of the screws so they couldn't go loose. I put a grease nipple here. This is just full of oil and some engine or some lithium-ion grease. I put a hitch on as well for hauling trailers and everything. It actually works really good. Nice low gear with these small tires. The ones out of the factory, in my opinion, are a little too small. Yes, there's a lot of torque, but getting that up speed is hard when you pull this lever all the way. On the original setup, it only goes up 3/4 of it. So what I did is out the back here, there's a screw knob. It's hard to see. Anyways, that's to limit the throttle. I went on the inside of it and scraped it all out. Now my throttle goes all the way up 100%. So you get more depth in that 4th gear, especially because I noticed that on the original quad setup, 4th gear was gutless. Well, not gutless, but you could never reach the top of 4th gear.